are over halfway through the legislative session at the state capitol, and there are a lot of things up for debate among state lawmakers. And this morning, we are getting an update, so let's go ahead and welcome in Senate Pro Tem Lonnie Paxton. Good morning, and thanks so much for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with some of these first questions.
Okay.
A top headline at home, recent firings over at the Office of Forestry, State Forestry, and the governor, his comments on ending the office altogether. Just talk to me about your thoughts so far on all of this.
Well, it all stems back to that Friday when we had the horrible outbreak of wildfires throughout the state. And, I've already made comments about what I feel about that. I'm in my actually 34th year in my hometown of being a volunteer firefighter. So I've been involved with this for a long, long time. And I've dealt with forestry before, and they're a valuable agency to have. I appreciate the fact the governor's walked back his comments about eliminating the department itself. And I think we're continuing to work through, can departments be more efficient? Always we can look at that. But I think we kind of reacted kind of quickly to some of these things. And I think cooler heads are starting to prevail, but we'll work our way through it.
And do you have any concerns moving forward now?
I always have concerns. Always have concerns about, right now there's really nobody in charge of it, and I know the governor's looking to replace the individual that he fired, and so we'll see how that works out. I spoke with the governor face to face about it and kind of told him my dissatisfaction with how it was handled and how quickly it was handled, and we had a good conversation. And I said, a lot of times you want to take more time to evaluate the situation rather than just blame somebody. And I thought he moved too rapidly on that, and when he watches this, he's not going to be surprised that I say that, because we had that same conversation. And I respect the governor; it's his position, but the Forestry Department itself is under the purview of the legislature. We created it, we fund it, and so it cannot just be eliminated because the governor wants to eliminate it. He has walked that back, which we're glad to see. And if we can make that department better, that will be a better thing for Oklahoma.
Hey, let's talk about bills now, starting with the bell-to-bell no-sell bill.
Okay.
I know right now that there is a version from the Senate. Let's talk more about that version, and then also what do you think about the House's version that includes an opt-out option?
Well, that's what the legislative process is about. Senator Ali Seifert has the legislation in the Senate. We've already sent that over to the House. We have the House legislation, and so that's basically the main difference is that the Senate version doesn't really include that opt-out in there, or at least have to wait a year before they start making changes to it. So that's what we're trying to discuss. There is, you look at why this is out there, and it's Oklahoma's 49th in the nation in education outcomes, and so it's not a funding thing. We have piled tons of money back into education. In my 8 years in the legislature, we've almost doubled the appropriated money that's gone into education, and we are still ranked 49th in the nation. So what is the issue? So you start looking at some of the things and think about the distractions that a cell phone has, not just for students but for everybody. But you think about a student trying to learn in the classroom, talking to teachers, how much of a distraction it is. Local districts have the opportunity now to do this if they want to, but the fact is they just haven't done it. They haven't taken action. A lot of superintendents have called their legislators and said, we support this, but we kind of want you to be the bad guys, not us, so just do it on a statewide basis. So not everybody agrees with that statement, but most people do. Most people know that we have to have these kids concentrated in class in order to have better outcomes.
There are so many bills that are up for discussion right now over at the state capitol. Can you talk about some of the bills that you'd like to see pushed through this session?
Well, there's all sorts of things. I mean, just not so much what I want to push through, but the things that we're talking about. There's lots of discussions about wind energy and green energy, and about setbacks of a wind turbine from somebody else's property. That's a very lively discussion we're having right now about property rights versus what goes on your neighbor's property. So that's a discussion that's going on. We're also talking about tax cuts. The governor has called for those. We continue to look at that and try to find a way to relieve the burden on the average taxpayer. And of course, we're looking directly towards Washington D.C. and saying, what are they going to do? And so there's a lot of unknowns out there that we just wonder what's going to happen. A couple days ago, the stock market is in the tank, and yesterday it soars, and so we can't make our budget decisions based on what the day-to-day activities of the stock market is, but we can look at what's the overall trend of kind of what's going on. The trend is uncertainty. We don't know. We're talking about Medicaid, and the federal government's talking about cutting back what they give to the states for their portion of the Medicaid reimbursement. That could mean a lot of money to the state of Oklahoma that we would have to make up for. So that's the things we're trying to figure out. So preservation of our savings, which we have, is what we're very, very interested in.
And how it's all going to impact us here in Oklahoma.
Right.
Going back to tax cuts, you did mention that. I want to talk about the bill that's heading to the Senate floor. It would provide Oklahomans a 0.25% tax cut each year if the state's revenue has an increase of $300 million. Do you like this bill?
Yes, we do. It's a concept of if the state is growing, as it's growing, we can start cutting back on the income tax. We've already cut it in the past some, but we want to make sure that it doesn't just get triggered based upon the fact that there's just basic things. This is a pretty complex bill about what would trigger that tax cut, but it does kind of limit the growth of government and starts giving that money back to the taxpayer.
And gets you to that path of zero that the governor has been pushing for.
It's a kind of a goal of most people in that building, is we would like to see that path, and the Republican caucus in the Senate certainly agrees with that, and we're trying to find the responsible way to do that. I came in the legislature in 2017 and 2018 session when basically the financial wheels had came off and we were in bad shape, and we were underwater on our budget and had zero money in savings. We've now worked very, very hard to build that savings up. I don't want to do any legislation, enact any legislation that is going to cause us to be in a situation like we were back then. So we're very, very cautious on how we move forward with this. We want to give the tax cuts, but we also want to preserve those savings. We also want to provide for the basic things that government should be providing for.
All right, and a few seconds left here. I do want to just ask you what your message is to Oklahomans. As we look at, we have a little more than half a session, half the session here left.
Yes, we're on the downhill slide of this thing, but we're working on it. And as we work the budget through, I think people just look at what has happened and the way the legislature has acted for the past few years is we have been putting money away for a day like this. We're underwater in our budget this year because of the grocery tax cut that we did last year, took away the state portion of the state grocery sales tax. We're below water a little bit on where our budget would like to be, but we have plenty of savings to make that up. We just want to make sure we continue to have that. We shouldn't have to be cutting services to people that really, really need it, and we should be able to keep this state moving forward. The state's doing great, the economy's doing great, and I'm looking forward to what we have to offer.
All right, Senate Pro Tem Lonnie Paxton, thank you so much for coming in, and we'll talk to you here soon.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.